Hi, Hal. Welcome back to session 8 of digital image processing, representation and description. The table of contents are overview, sensitivity, representation, chain codes, and MCQ. Representing region in two ways. In terms of its external characteristics, that is its boundary, focus on shape characteristics. In terms of internal characteristics, its region, focus on regional properties. Example, color, texture. Sometimes we may need to use both ways. Description describes the region based on the chosen representation. Example, representation, boundary, description, length of the boundary, orientation of the straight line joining its extreme points, and the number of concavities in the boundary. After image is segmented into regions, the resulting aggregate of segmented pixels is represented and described for further computer processing. Representation involves two choices in terms of its external characteristics, that is boundary, in terms of its internal characteristics, pixels comprising the region. Above scheme is only part of the task of making data useful to computer. Next task is to describe the region based on representation. A region may be represented by its boundary, and its boundary is described by features such as its length, the orientation of straight line joining its extreme points, and number of concavities in the boundary. So what to choose and when to choose? External representation is chosen when primary focus is on shape characteristics. Internal representation is chosen when primary focus is on regional properties such as color and texture. Sometimes it is necessary to choose both representations. Features selected as descriptors should be insensitive to change in size, translation, rotation. So features selected as descriptors should be as insensitive as possible to variations in size, translation, rotation. Following descriptors satisfy one or more of these properties. Representation. Segmentation techniques yield raw data in the form of pixels along a boundary or pixels contained in a region. These data sometimes are used directly to obtain descriptors. Standard uses techniques to compute more useful data descriptors from the raw data in order to decrease the size of the data. So it deals with the compactation of segmented data into representations that facilitate the computation of descriptors. The various representation approaches are chain codes, boundary following, polygonal approximation, signatures, boundary segments, skeletons. Chain codes. A chain code is a lossless compression algorithm for monochrome images. The basic principle of chain code is to separately encode each connected component in the image. It is a boundary based representation, and from this we find boundary descriptors possible. Chain code describe the sequence of steps generated when walking around the boundary. They are used to represent a boundary by a connected sequence of straight line segments of specified length and direction. Typically, this representation is based on 4 or 8 connectivity of the segments. The direction of each segment is coded by using a numbering scheme as shown in the figure. That is 4 directional chain code and 8 directional chain code. So this is a digital boundary with resampling grid superimposed. Result of resampling, the 4 directional chain code, 8 directional chain code. Chain codes are unacceptable because the resulting chain of codes tends to quite long. Any small disturbances along the boundary due to noise or imperfect segmentation cause changes in the code that may not be related to the shape of the boundary. Let us go for MCQs. What are 2 ways of representing a region? In terms of its external characteristics, it is boundary. In terms of its internal characteristics, it's region. Both A and B, none of the above. The answer is both A and B. In which step of processing the images are subdivided successively into smaller regions? Image enhancement, image acquisition, segmentation, wavelets. The answer is wavelets. What is the next step in image processing after compression? Wavelets, segmentation, representation and description, morphological processing. The answer is D, morphological processing. What is the step that is performed before color image processing in image processing? Wavelets and multi-resolution processing, image enhancement, image restoration, image acquisition. The answer is image restoration. How many number of steps are involved in image processing? 10, 12, 8, 13. The answer is A, 10. What is the expanded form of JPEG? Joint photographic expansion group, joint photograph expansion group, joint photograph expanded group, joint photographic experts group. The answer is D, joint photographic experts group. Thank you.